Okay. Well, I had an interesting conversation a little while ago where I was talking to an older gentleman who has his kids are about to go off to college. And he made an interesting remark to me. He said, when I was a kid, that's not how he talks. He sounds more normal than that, not like an old timey old person. He said, when I was a kid, um, all the rich people used to buy houses for their kids wherever they went to college. And, I keep wondering whether or not that's something that I could do for my kids. Well, that's what we're going to be talking about today. It seems maybe potentially out of reach for most, but at the same time, depending on where your kids go to school, it might be a very real possibility. So we're going to talk about the benefits of that, my own kind of history and lessons that I've learned from that, and we're going to talk about um, some of the like a few like a case study of something that happened with one of my friends that shows all the awesome benefits and how it can still be a very real strategy right now in the 2020s. So, hey, sorry for the audio issue there, guys. All right, so one of the things that that one of the things that really started out my financial life and career is having my parents be able to help me buy a condo when I first went to college. And we'll get more into that story later, but ever since then, I've really thought a lot about kind of that gift and being able to do that for your kids and how much it can change their lives. And while I totally understand that this can feel completely out of reach for a lot of people, it really is something that with kind of like the way the kind of the economics of the country work right now, and a few other variables, it really actually is quite possible. I have a some friends that actually moved to Louisiana for college, for instance, and even in a fairly nice capital city like Baton Rouge, you're able to afford a townhome for under $100,000. And so they did that and rented out a couple of the rooms and actually ended up making a profit on their house. There are kind of all over the country, there's incredible universities in areas that have generally inexpensive real estate. And one of the things that is kind of weird about kind of college and university economics is the fact that because colleges are basically kind of like the same group of people living all across different parts of the country. Long story short, the costs all end up being fairly similar. The amount of rent that you're expected to pay in Los Angeles or New York is actually not that far off from the amount of rent that college students are kind of expected to pay anywhere. And so again, for instance, in Louisiana, students were still paying between 800 to $1,000 a month for rent, and so it was not uncommon it was not difficult for my friends to be able to find tenants for their townhome, and they lived in one and then rented out the other units. Below me right now is playing a video that I shot a couple years ago. You can tell it is a couple years old because it is not a very good video. It's kind of shaky and I don't know what I'm wearing there or whatever. And I originally intended to do a voiceover of the video and never got around to it. And so finally I'm taking all of this footage and using it here because the point of this video is this condo is in Irvine and is was actually a remarkably affordable condo And I believe this one, you can find stuff like this even today for, $500,000 to $700,000, which listen, I know that's a lot of money, but in terms of Southern California real estate, it's not that bad. And when you make an investment like this, all of that money that would have otherwise gone to rent or to dorms or to other stuff like that, that just goes right back into your equity. If you're able to have roommates and rent out one of the bedrooms, or even have a bunk bed to be able to have like a room, like a bunch of roommates in each room, the savings start to add up pretty quickly, and the amount of income potential that it can bring in adds up really, really fast. It easily pays for itself. Instead of having a huge bill at the beginning of each month for your rent, you're actually potentially collecting profit on that. And then after the student graduates and moves on, it can actually end up being a continual source of revenue where they could continue renting it out to other students, or they could sell it and use that as a down payment for something else. I mean, there's a lot of options there if you buy well. And again, this I show this video to demonstrate that it's not just in weird rural parts of the country where this works. I ran the numbers on this specific unit, and it works here too. People talk a lot about house hacking, but house hacking can be very difficult and can have a whole bunch of sacrifice when you are, trying to start a family or something like that. Like, you can't have roommates in bunk beds if you're, trying to settle down, trying to, start a family. But when you're in your late teens and early 20s, that's a perfect time to house hack. And yet, for some reason in our culture, it is, way more socially acceptable to rent, even though, like I said, like, those rent prices can be really astronomical for what you're getting. But just because it's like the normal way to do it, people have a tendency to do it the way they're supposed to, which just feeds into this system of expensive university housing that just kind of goes and goes and goes. So yeah, instead of participating in that and making a bunch of student housing operators rich, uh, you should absolutely consider buying something for yourself. All right, so let's talk a little bit more about this option here. So, or this is actually, so this was my condo that we were able to pick up in downtown LA. It was, honestly, it was about this price in the mid 400s, 20 years ago now. And it's still in that price range now, which is one of the big downsides of condos. But we can talk a little bit about that in a separate episode. And long story short, my parents had saved up a bunch of money for me to go to college, and thankfully, luckily, I got a full ride scholarship to go to USC. And so my parents were thinking, all right, well, what do we do with this money that we saved up? And they thought, it would be a really nice idea to buy this condo for me. So, that money made a wonderful down payment for this condo, and it changed my life, frankly. It was just this little studio apartment. You basically, this photo of it is the entire place. It's got that beautiful, beautiful view though, and has a bunch of really cool amenities. You see the swimming pool that overlooks the whole city and all that. So a lot of great memories here. I ended up living here for 8 years because we bought it in 2007, which is just before the real estate crash. And had no way of really anticipating that something like that would happen. And so I ended up, and so I kind of share this story because it shows some of the potential dangers that can happen, right? Like, you buy it just before a big real estate crash, and I was essentially stuck there for 8 years before the value went back to where it started. If I were doing it again today, I would have probably actually sold it at more of a loss earlier so that I could move that money over into a house that would be able to gain equity faster. And that's eventually what I did. I ended up selling this condo, and with the equity that I'd built up in it, and honestly, the money that I saved in rent. I mean, I kind of ran the calculations over an 8-year span. I saved probably about $100,000 that I would have otherwise spent on rent in Los Angeles. And so, took all that money, put that into my first house, which, thankfully, it's like I managed to catch that wave of value as it went up. Ended up selling that house in 2020. And with the money from that, I started this real estate brokerage. I was able to invest in a real estate portfolio in Ohio. And it really, like, so you can draw a line of my entire career, the whole past 20 years all go back to this condo. And again, it doesn't need to be this like $500,000 type situation. Like I said, here's a video about Baton Rouge here, here and where I like to invest in Ohio and where my wife went to school at Purdue in Indiana. There are lots of great schools for whatever you want to learn all over the country that happen to have very inexpensive real estate in there. You can live in a really nice city, and maybe it has some rough areas or it gets hurricanes or something like that. But it can just truly be life changing to buy something instead of renting during that time frame, and then you have an asset to do something with afterwards that once again could absolutely change your life. So, all right, I this one was just a really quick one. I wanted to share a little bit about myself and about some of the options that might be out there that people might otherwise feel like are completely out of reach. Um, I guess looking at this just kind of reminds me of another thought, which is just that, with financing, even buying a $100,000 condo or $100,000 townhome down here is probably only about $800 to $1,000 a month in costs. And so, you rent out one of the bedrooms to somebody else to another college student for that amount of money. And yeah, it easily pays for itself. Okay. So, again, my name is Richard Whalen. I am owner and broker of the Imagination Brokerage. I sorry, yeah, this one came together kind of last minute. Uh, thank you so much for joining me. I am live here every Wednesday at 5 p.m. Pacific time. And, I like to talk about a variety of different types of topics that affect both buyers and sellers, as well as investors all over the country. If you are looking to buy, sell, or invest in Southern California or in Northeast Ohio, please feel free to reach out to me. And if you are looking for some advice on, if you have kids that are going off to college and you'd like some advice on, where and what you should buy, or if you have kids that are thinking about going to a school in Southern California, one of our many incredible schools like UC Irvine, UC Riverside, UC San Diego, UCLA, and of course, USC. I, encourage you to reach out to me, and I would be happy to help you guys make the same sort of life-changing financial decision that impacted me in my career. Thanks so much for joining me. You can find me at imaginationbroker.com. Thanks so much.